Welcome to the 360 Training Tutorial, Course Configuration Templates, Assessment Policies. With this tutorial, we move away from the Building a Simple Course series and move on to more advanced topics. The next big topic is Course Configuration Templates, which are the settings that tell your course how to behave. For this tutorial, we will focus expressly on the assessment policies, the rules and details for the assessments in your course, such as the quizzes and final exam we added in the last tutorial. This tutorial will cover setting the number of questions the assessment should ask, setting the mastery score, assessment behavior for when the student fails, the display of feedback and information to the student. Let's go to our course in the LCMS and get started. Here is the course we have built over the last several tutorials. At first access, a course always opens to the Summary tab of the course root, or the top-level folder of your course. Along the tab bar is the Course Configurations tab, which we will click to open, and see the many window shades available in the course configuration settings. Each window shade opens up to a particular area of configurations, and clicking it again rolls it back up. This entire page is a single course configuration template. Only authors who have been given course configuration privileges will be able to edit any settings. Other authors may choose from this drop-down a pre-existing template. To create a new template, an author with permissions would click the Add Course Configuration Template link, which will open the Course Configuration Template wizard, which will walk you through setting up each configuration area. In our next tutorial, we will walk through this full process. Today, we will leave these other various areas at their default settings and focus on the assessment policies. We will click to expand both the post-assessment policy and quiz policy areas. As you can see, these separate areas are virtually identical. The same is true of the pre-assessment policy area. These areas may be configured independently, which allows you to apply a different set of rules to the different types of tests simultaneously. We will focus on just one of these areas to explore the settings and mention typical applications for each setting. So, in each area, the first thing to do is click the checkbox to enable the assessment. The assessment will not appear in the course unless this box is checked. Next, tell the assessment how many questions it should ask. Understanding how this works is important to understanding several of the other settings. It involves the learning objectives to which you attached question banks in the previous tutorial. To illustrate this, our course contains 3 quizzes, each of which is fed by a separate question bank. Let's say Bank 1 has 10 questions, while Banks 2 and 3 have 5 questions. So the first way you can use the number of questions field is to limit the number of questions asked per quiz to, say, 5. Now each of the 3 quizzes will ask 5 questions, even though Quiz 1 has more questions than that in its bank. The other thing you can do is enter a number that is as high as the largest quiz bank in your course. In this case, 10. Now Quiz 1 will ask all 10 questions in its bank, and Quizzes 2 and 3 will still ask 5 questions, which is all the questions their banks contain. When the number you enter here is higher than the number of questions in a bank, all the questions in the bank will be asked. If the number is lower, then the quizzes will be limited to that number. The next setting is the mastery score, which is refreshingly simple. Just enter the passing grade as a percentage. 70% is a fairly typical mastery score. The student will have to achieve at least this score in order to pass the test. Next, it is important to define what happens if the student fails the test. Typically for a quiz, you would allow the student to retake the test a number of times. Enter that number of times in the Attempts field. Then in the drop-down, choose what happens if the student fails the test more than that many times. Either go to the next lesson, retake content, or lock course. We will set it to retake content. Now, after the third failed attempt, the course will take the student back to the beginning of the lesson, and the student must review the lesson before attempting the test again. Note that in the case of a final exam, this would take the student back to the beginning of the entire course. Now that we have the overall test behavior defined, let's look at some further adjustments we can make. To make the test more challenging and to discourage students attempting to memorize the order of the answers, enable Randomized Questions. Now the questions will appear in a different random order on each retake. To go back to our example, if the number of questions is set at 5, then the same 5 questions in Quiz 2 and 3 will appear in a different order each time, while Quiz 1 will pull up at random 5 of the 10 questions in its bank each retake. If you enable Randomize Answers, then in each question, the order in which the answers display will be different each time. So in a multiple choice question with 4 answer choices, the correct answer might be A the first time, but the next time it might be C. Finally, you can create question banks that are several times larger than the number of questions you intend for the test to ask, and enable this setting. Ask unique questions in retakes. For example, we attach a question bank containing 15 questions to this quiz, which is set to ask 5 questions. And this quiz will show 5 new questions each retake until the bank is used up, so the student wouldn't see a question repeated until the 4th retake. Now we will skip over several settings here. They are all advanced settings, and move on to feedback and grading display. First, choose when you want to show students whether their answers were correct or incorrect. Typically, a quiz will show this information after each question is answered, while a final exam will show this result only after the entire assessment is submitted. If your questions include feedback, enable the setting Show Feedback while reviewing questions. Now, for this quiz, after each question is answered, the system will indicate whether the student was correct or incorrect and display the feedback. For a final exam, to view feedback, we must also check Allow reviewing questions and answers after grading. Now, once a student has submitted the exam, the student may go back to review their answers, and the feedback will display as well. There are several more advanced settings over on this side also. Please see the LCMS Training Manual for a comprehensive overview of the assessment policies. For now, we have entered a fairly typical quiz policy configuration. Let's open the post-assessment policy and configure that in a typical manner as well. And when finished, as always, click Save. We have successfully configured the assessment policies in our course. If you are distributing your course over the LMS, you will need to publish the course in order to push out configuration changes. However, for assessment policies, the changes are viewable in the LCMS preview mode. That was a lot of information. We'll see you next time when we walk through the other main areas of the course configuration template. Thank you for watching this 360 Training LCMS Course Configuration Template demonstration. We hope you found the information helpful. For more information on course configurations, see the LCMS Training Manual module Understanding Course Configurations.